Maybe both of us could
Yeah,
take questions.
absolutely.
Yes.
Mr. Lynch, what is the purpose of the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, and what do you do in regard to that?
Great question. So when I was talking about the fact that there are these different political entities or different kinds of strategic alliances, and I'm hoping that the arts will find a way to get at all those tables, the arts at every table if possible. We were noticing, remember I said that 60% of the money is earned income. Our analysis of economic, our impact analysis showed that a third of the money in many communities on average that is from ticket sales and earned income, it comes from outside of the county, meaning it is a visitor of some kind, a tourist of some kind. And when those visitors come, they spend more money, almost twice what the local person would spend after they spend money on a ticket. So if you think about somebody from out of town, they come, they buy the same ticket that we buy, we live in town, but they're going to park longer, they may stay overnight, they're going to buy some things to take back. And so the economic impact for the community is much bigger, and therefore we, Americans for the Arts, and I think all of us, want to see more of it. We want to see more tourism. We want to see more visitors come and take advantage of the arts. So this national body existed, the United States Travel and Tourism Advisory Board. It's a federally appointed body. It advises the Secretary of Commerce and the rest of government on travel and tourism policy, and they invited me to, after we did some lobbying, invited me to be a member of it. And my job on the board is to be the cultural voice, to remind them that there are cultural destinations, that there are ways to find cultural destinations by going to the State Arts Council and by trying to find ways to institutionalize that in law. And that's the short version of the role. Now, just anecdotally, it's interesting, most of the people on the advisory board are not content people. They are people who represent airlines or they represent hotel chains, and their interests, the airlines' interests, for example, is very different. They're interested in getting oil prices down. So that's what they, and that was shocking to me. You know, this is about travel and tourism, and we're the arts, and so therefore it should be about us. And we have to fight for that, you know? So that's what I do on that board.
Thank you.
Other questions? Oh, come on. This is a group with lots of questions.
What do you see happening with the charitable gift, with the sequestration and all of that? What's going on with the charitable gift deduction?
So the charitable giving deduction is, in some ways, it's a political football right now. It could go a number of different ways, which is why it was so important to have that hearing yesterday. And I think that the charitable deduction, in my opinion, what I think is going to happen is it's not going to go away. But we're in danger of having it reduced. In a number of different proposals are trying to reduce it. And that's one danger, and so we have to fight that one off. And we're fighting that one off as an industry, a nonprofit industry altogether. But the second danger is even worse, and that is there are some proposals floating out there that there should be a double standard. That charities that are about important things, like hunger or pain or disaster, should get the full charitable deduction, and charities that are about things like what only rich people want, like the arts, and I've heard people say this, should get a less of a deduction, a reduced reduction. So we're trying to fight that front as well. And so it's going to be argued out. There are going to be hearings, there are going to be papers, there's op-eds, and I see, I don't see it happening as fast as some of the proponents of capping the charitable deduction thought. But sequestration, the way Congress is going right now, it looks like they're going to let it ride, possibly, and then come back and try to fix it. That wasn't a strategy even 6 months ago. It's dangerous for us because we become a football in that can be kicked around and popped out as part of a solution. So we're just trying to make sure we're noisy about it right now. Yeah,
well, the whole thing about charitable deductions is the people have a voice in what they feel is important. in the arts and whatever charity they want to support. Here in Michigan, we used to have a credit of $100 if you spent $200 on certain charities like the DIA and the Detroit Symphony Orchestra and so on. And we would get $100 of that back from the state in our refund, tax refund. So that was kind of a way of the citizens showing the state saying, we believe these things are important and we're going to make the state pay for it. And they took that away from us. So that what we're finding is our government is taking the voice away from the people. And that's pretty frustrating.
Well, and that's another good argument too. You know, there are practical arguments, and then that's an emotional argument, even a patriotic argument. That's a valuable one for us to put into the quiver. Thank you.
Yeah. This is for you, as a matter of fact. In your attempt to impress the state legislature with the value of this, what can average citizens do to help you get this across?
Sure. Well, a couple of different things. I mean, I think first, help at the federal level trickles down to the state level. So I think Bob mentioned joining the Arts Action Fund is free, and then you don't have to give to join, but you can join, and then if you'd like, give. That kind of keeps you updated at the federal level and advocating there. Also coming with us to Washington, D.C. And joining us on Arts Advocacy Day. I lead a group, usually around 8 to 10 people from Michigan, and we try to get to every member of our congressional delegation. So kind of starting there, talking about at the federal level. But also, I think the way that we are and the way that kind of things have changed when we went from the Department of History, Arts, and Libraries and having our own kind of department where the arts was to now being in I think the strategic funds budget is about $2 billion, and right now we're a $6.7 million budget within that. It is a lot different. We used to be able to go into a hearing room and pack it with art supporters and hear from everyone. Now it's just Jennifer and I coming in and testifying about the importance of it. But to get to your question, I mean, what you can do? Take this, call up your state representative, call up your state senator. Talk to them about it, either in their district office or somewhere. A lot of them don't have district offices anymore and have coffee hours, or you can send them an email, or just simply call. Let them know. On our website, we always post kind of here's what we're asking for in terms of the state budget. I mean, getting in there and talking to your state representative about not just kind of what we're asking at the state level, but what you know from your experience in the arts, from your organization. From an organization that you participate with, letting them know that this is what we do with this money, and here's part of it that went to this organization. Something along the lines with that. And certainly, if you're not already on our email list, get on that. If you are, you probably got an email a few minutes ago or an hour ago about an arts education related issue. Whenever we send out an email with an action alert attached to it, take 2 seconds. It's literally just clicking. It's the same thing at the federal level. You click once, enter in your address, and then what pops up is just your state rep, your state senator, a pre-drafted email that you can change if you want, or just hit send.
I'll just add something to that. First of all, Michigan is legendary with our arts advocacy efforts for National Arts Advocacy Day. Because you folks brought 20 students last year from the University of Michigan who came by train, and so it was a 24-hour train ride in order to get to Washington, D.C. I thought that was so great that I mentioned it to the congressional representatives who were there with us for that day, and so the legend continues.
Yes.
The other thing I would just say is that everything you just said about hitting the button, making it easy, and sending off a letter is designed to overcome the fact that arts advocates in general want to advocate, they know they should advocate, they need to advocate, but they don't advocate. And because they're busy people, everybody's busy. So you've created, and we've tried to create, a really, really fast 2-minute from your desk mechanism that you can advocate. What a lot of people don't realize is how effective that is, because Congress does not hear from a lot of people. In fact, at the state level, this is probably not true anymore, but a number of years ago when a survey was done asking what a landslide of opinion was to a state legislator on any issue, it was 10 communications from somebody. If they heard 10 times from somebody, they thought something was happening and they had to get on it. So you have a huge impact, and it's important to know that.
Yeah, I can quickly second that. I worked in a legislative office for 5 years, and actually that was the direct number. That was the exact number. It was if we get 10 emails or 10 phone calls about an issue, I want to know about it. So, yeah.
Could you just tell us about STEAM versus STEM and how that's being positioned, the A in there?
Sure. So, well, there's good news, there's bad news, and then there's good news. I mean, the good news is that America, the president, a lot of people are trying to get more people to work. They're trying to make America more competitive. And what they're looking at is for us to get back or to maintain a leadership on these 4 things that they think is key to the future of the world: science, technology, engineering, math. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. It's bad when it is at the expense of other things like arts, liberal arts, and so on. And not only is it bad, it's also counterproductive, because there's lots of studies that show that when students have the arts in their lives, they're more interested in learning on other fronts. They're more creative. They're more interested in staying in school, etc. So we know we have a really good and important product in the arts beyond the arts themselves. And so good people out there came up with the idea that inserting the arts into the STEM concept provides steam. Now there could be many, many other slogans, and that one works for some people and it doesn't work for other people. But the reason that it's important is that the administration and the Department of Education, in my opinion right now, are STEM focused. No matter what they say, there's good language and rhetoric out there, but not good policy action. And they have, partnering with them on the business side, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has enormous influence on the Department of Education, and they're focused on STEM, which is why we're trying to have a partnership and influence and information on all 3 of those fronts: Department of Education, the administration, the actual Congress itself as a front. And with that, that idea, the STEAM caucus is just an example of something to get the dialogue going in Congress. Just like, when we can, we will create events in front of federal leaders, Congress, at the Department of Education. Now, the other thing to realize with this is, I think you all know this, but let's just spell it out. When you look at money for education in America, it's 95% local. Okay, then there's some state money, and then there's this tiny little bit of federal money. But local money is often, and remember my example about state arts agencies? There were 4 of them, but they chased the federal dollar, and they came into being, and now state arts agencies fund 3 or 4 times as much than the federal dollars. But the federal money, the idea that you're going to get money from the federal government if you do something is still very, very compelling. And the No Child Left Behind law says that what they're telling people at the local level is that you test in math, you test in verbal skills, and if you do well in those areas, you get money. Okay, if you do well in the arts, you might get a better life, but it's not about money. There's no incentive there. So we're trying to figure out ways that we can actually create incentives to lever the local money as well.
Yes. So on the STEAM issue, there's a researcher at MSU who's been doing long-term studies with his wife on this very issue. And he has a very compelling case to make that is easily tied into commercial interest. Because the case that he makes, his name is Robert Root-Bernstein. The case that he makes is he's studied people that have been in STEM honors college at MSU, who have graduated in their STEM fields, who have then entered professionally into their various STEM fields. But he's found 2 different cohorts. Those who have had not just early, but lifelong involvement in some arts or crafts making, and those that don't. And the end game of this is by factors of about 20 to 1. Those who have the lifelong involvement in arts or crafts making of some sort, very broadly defined, are more apt to get patents and more apt to start up their own companies. So that is evidence that I've used in talking to the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy, and to which they are very sympathetic.
That's great.
So it's, the STEAM argument is a fine argument if you can link it up to the right stuff that the right people are interested in. But the stuff about innovation, entrepreneurialism is the right way to go.
I was just going to say, you know, we've actually been doing a little bit of this work in Michigan. We have been partnering with, at times, the U.S. Army installation, their TACOM Life Cycle Management Command base out of Warren. I went through a tour with them. I think he's the major at the time, who's the head of the installation. Went through and was giving me a tour, and was just kind of explaining it to me. And it's kind of I was actually surprised the way that he was explaining it. He's saying, we develop everything that a soldier drives, wears, shoots, whatever here, and then we send it out into the field, and we get feedback. Our engineers get feedback from those soldiers saying, this is wrong, this is an issue, this is an issue. I need my engineers to think creatively on how to fix a problem that comes back from the field. And he said that he sees a direct impact in terms of having arts education, his engineers having arts education, and being able to make those decisions. Some of those changes that they make are absolutely, they're funny. One of the issues that a tank was having, or a truck was having, was that a grenade would be thrown at the door of the truck, and it would just fall down, and then it would blow up. And so they thought, well, an easy way to fix it, let's put, if you ever thrown a baseball into one of those mesh nets that threw the baseball back, well, an engineer had an idea of, well, why don't we put those on the side of the door? And that was one of, I mean, if that's not creative thinking, I don't know what is. So, you know, we are doing some of that stuff here in Michigan. It's slow go. There's a lot more people. I mean, it takes more than one person that we have to convince. But we are working towards that.
Anybody know the name Ellsworth Kelly, the famous visual artist Ellsworth Kelly? So we honored Ellsworth Kelly a few years back at our National Arts Awards, and you know, iconic visual artist. And as I'm talking to him, he says, you know, when I was in the arts division in World War II, what? And it turns out that in World War II, and this was classified till 1999, there was an entire division, 23rd Special Forces, U.S. Army, made up of artists, visual artists, sound engineers, theater artists, to do exactly what you're talking about, to take a look at everything from a creative point of view and feed back different ways of doing it. They invented all kinds of disinformation mechanisms, including creating with fabrication entire armies of inflatable tanks to make enemies think something was happening here and the real thing would happen over here. Fascinating, untold story about the arts and its contribution to practical matters, as we're talking about here. I want to make sure I get that name afterwards from you for that person. And I'll add just one other thing. One of the strategic partnerships that we have with the conference board, which is all business leaders, is exactly about that, the need for creativity, which they think is the #1 need in the 21st century worker from studies that they've done, not math, not science, but creativity. And then we said, great, but you're not saying anything about the arts. So we did another study that showed with them that the #1 thing that superintendents of schools think creates creativity is exactly what you said, extended art in the classroom for any subject outcome. And the #2 thing that business leaders think creates creativity is the arts in the curriculum. Their #1 thing was an entrepreneurial adventure of some kind.
One last question.
Yeah, we have one last
Maud?
question.
Well, this is more of a comment. We also hear a lot from people doing workforce development here in Detroit and the region about soft skills. the importance of being able to relate to people, do a presentation, basically kind of, business and that kind of thing. And, that's an enormous amount of what you learn in, being in an orchestra, being in a theater troupe, all of those kinds of things. And so I think that's another argument we can bring to play, that to help people be employable and give them the kind of skills to relate and succeed in business that they need. That's another.
Great. I think you're right. I'll just say, I look at all decision-making bodies, whether it's Congress or a state legislature or, the family unit, as a pie chart. And in that pie chart, you've got a lot of different people with different things that they respond to. And so our job, as you're pointing out, is for us to have as many different arguments as we can to hit that pie chart in all of its different pie pieces in order to get the ultimate goal of the arts support.
Great, thank you. Well, I thank everybody for coming this afternoon, and do think seriously about the difference that you individually can make in this whole challenge that we continue to have ahead of us, both here in Michigan by connecting to the various things that we have available. Check out our website, join our e-list. Mike will keep you up to date on everything. Doing the same with Americans for the Arts, because the more that we can work together as part of that layered network of arts advocates, there's power in that, and there's power in those numbers. So help us keep that work going.